We are slaying monsters.
Don't let the ghosts and the ghouls disturb you, darling.
Oh yeah, you got a good joke?
I have a joke.
Oh, what's your joke? Okay, it's not a good joke. Okay, what's your joke?
What did the dentist say after they had an encounter with a UFO?
I don't know what.
The tooth is out there.
Oh,
That's a good joke.
Good.
It's not. It's not. It's pretty bad.
It's bad joke. It's
a
bad.
bad joke.
It's bad like a rotting tooth. So, but
why do aliens never have teeth? Whenever you see the Greys never have teeth. They just have these thin little lips. What do Greys eat?
I think they eat through straws. I think they eat the goop inside of people.
Oh, like when we got our cat Zuri, they were feeding her with that little tube of meat paste.
Yeah.
You think the Greys just eat tubes of meat paste?
I think so. Human meat paste.
Do they eat humans?
I think it would explain some disappearances.
I guess.
You know,
maybe.
I mean, I think that's the most logical conclusion.
Or they have like a human farm somewhere that you're like manufacturing the humans. Mm-hmm. And yeah, maybe that's what they do. So the Greys are abducting us and taking our DNA and then manufacturing humans. Oh man, we are already in Rogan territory here. Holy shit,
really
we're going hard
wow,
today.
We've just started with some hot takes. some wild but probably not also true takes.
I would say the exact same thing that you said, but I would omit the word probably. I would omit the word probably, and I would say they are straight up not true
at all.
At all. Because if anything, it's not the Greys, it's the Mantis aliens that are taking the humans. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Oh baby, we got a lot of ground to cover today, and we got a lot of space to cover.
Okay.
We got a lot of space to cover in the cosmos.
It's a lot of space, so we better get to it.
Let's do it.
All right, well, we're slaying monsters.
You betcha.
We got Maddie J.
Yo.
Across the table. And I'm EJ.
Take me to your leader. I need them for meat paste.
Yuck.
Ew.
It's just gross, man.
It was gross when Zuri was eating it. It's this fucking tube, and then you squeeze that. There's this like liquid meat that just kind of pours out the end, and she went nuts over it.
And I'll tell you what, it comes out liquid on the other end as well.
And it smelled really bad.
Yes.
On both sides.
Yes.
Gross.
She had some diarrhea there.
So on that delightful note. Speaking of cat diarrhea, welcome to our Fortean Roundup for November. And we're going to talk about some of the weirdest news to come out of the last month. And man, we got a bunch of it.
Yeah, it's weird because like at the beginning of every month, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a slow month. And then
here we are.
You get Lou Elizondo.
Oh yeah, Lou Elizondo charges onto the field and says, never fear. We're going to give you all of the talking points you need right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, UAPs are back. We're going to talk about them. Lou Elizondo testified in front of a panel of congressional officials about UAPs, secret governmental programs, and possible alien or non-human intelligence. And this is a follow-up to a story that we've been covering since we started doing all of this. I mean, we're talking all the way back to last July with David Grush, who he was kind of the founder of these panels, you know, I think, at least in this modern day. And Lou Elizondo is continuing the tradition here, speaking in front of Congress again. And then, of course, we're continuing the Immaculate Constellation story that we had from... I believe it was last month we talked about Immaculate Constellation, this breaking story that journalist Michael Schellenberger released. He supposedly has talked to these people who were involved with a secret governmental program in, I think it's the Department of Defense. He's always been kind of cagey because he doesn't want to give away his sources, but his sources were at one point employed in the government. we kind of assume it's the DoD, but we don't really know officially. But I assume it's the DoD because that's also where Elizondo claims to have been. So anyway, that's the problem with this whole thing, is that it's so shrouded in secrecy throughout the entire the length and breadth of it, right?
Yeah, that's for me. I'm very frustrated because we only know what he's willing to tell us, and it could all be untrue.
Yeah,
and so it's frustrating.
And it's not even willing necessarily. Like what he's willing to tell us is also up until the point where his agreement with the government, his contract with the government forbids him from doing that. Because Elizondo keeps saying over and over again, I submitted this book, the government signed off on this book, and this is what I am allowed to talk about. This and only this. I cannot talk about crash retrievals. He keeps saying that over and over again. That's not something I can talk about. So he can say, I was on a program that was part of crash retrievals, but I can't actually talk about the crash retrievals. Along with Elizondo were a couple of new faces testifying here. You had Dr. Tim Gallaudet, a rear admiral in the U.S. Navy and CEO of Ocean STL Consulting, which is a marine tech company. Like they do technology in the underwater space, basically. You have Michael Schellenberger was there. He, of course, wrote the expose on Immaculate Constellation, the purported secret UAP recovery program. And then you had Michael Gold. I love that they brought this guy in. He is on the NASA UAP independent study team. And the hearing focused on a 12-page report that Schellenberger submitted based on information provided by these unnamed contacts that we've been talking about, all of whom, he said, are current or former government employees.
Yeah, and that's where my frustration also comes in. Who are these employees? Who are these people? We don't have any solid evidence of anything, really. And when you talk about evidence, you're talking about these videos that are easily explained away. So then they say there are more videos, many, many more videos, and much more evidence of alien bodies. And I'm sure you'll get to that. But it's like, where is the evidence? Like, I don't care.
That's been the ongoing problem with all of this. So there were the 3 videos that were released that myself, many other people had debunked multiple times over. They talked specifically about the Go Fast video at the hearing. We had NASA physicists who debunked this thing. You know, it's parallax. So remember, when you're traveling super fast, stationary or slow moving objects fly by at incredible speeds because you're going fast quickly by them, you know. And tracking cameras like they have on there, they lock themselves onto points and hold them as you pass by, which causes the background to shift between the object while you move by it, making the object seem like it's traveling fast, even though it's not. You know, we call it parallax. And that's what you see in the Go Fast video. I've said it. Corridor Crew, who's a bunch of VFX artists, an incredible team, they said it. And NASA scientists have even confirmed that this is parallax and that it's an object that's probably flying about 1,300 or 13,000 feet above the ocean. We think it's a bird. That's basically the conclusion. They determined it was about 13,000 feet in the air, which sounds really high. But I looked into it, and a mallard duck, like a regular old mallard duck, can fly up to 21,000 feet in the air.
Wow.
So,
and then you have geese always running into airplanes that are 30,000 feet in the air.
Yeah, so. Totally. 13,000 feet is not that high for a bird flying over the ocean. So, you know, they keep releasing these kinds of videos or talking about these kinds of videos. And I've seen other videos that come out that, you know, we don't discuss on the Fortean because a lot of times it's just like, hey, here's a light in the sky. And you're like, okay, that's vaguely interesting, but it's not anything. And it's just not evidence of anything, you know? It's evidence of something weird, but just because you see something and you think it's weird and other people who see your video think it's weird does not mean that it's a UFO, does not mean that it's a spacecraft, an alien spacecraft, does not mean that it's some other government's tech. It could be a whole host of things. And one of the first things that you have to do as a rational thinker is you have to say, okay, in this piece of evidence that's been presented to me, is there anything to investigate? Is it possible to even investigate this? And I think a lot of times you end up with a bunch of debunkers who are like, oh, that's where you get the like, oh, it's swamp gas. Oh, it's a balloon. You know, all the things that we hear time and time again, and the things that we kind of rib the skeptics about too. Sometimes you got to just be like, well, it was weird. I don't know what it is, but it hasn't given any evidence of anything in particular either. Something can exist, be weird, and not be evidence for or against anything.
Right. And one thing I'll say, sort of as an indictment on the NASA scientist who was there. Or
sure.
If he was
Michael Gold.
Yeah. Which I love. I mean, he's great. But he's somebody who should know better. He's somebody who should say that's parallax. That instead, he's just kind of like, well, we got to research more. We got to look into this more, which is a very neutral stance to take. Unfortunately, I don't think the hearing and the people running the hearing were going to let a skeptic or somebody who is questioning some of this stuff within 50 feet of the panel, because that's just that was the vibe. It was all just like, we don't know. And also, yes, there are alien bodies. And that was all that was allowed to be. If you think about it, there was really no skeptical standpoint there.
No, there
really
never
wasn't. Even in the questioning, it was kind of like, let me just ask you some hardball quote questions, but they were really not. And I think that's the problem with some of these. And it's just frustrating for me because I want those harder questions. I want a scientist on the panel to say, what do you think of this? This is what we think it is. We think it's parallax. What do you think about that, Grush? What do you think about that, Elizondo? And nobody's asking these in that time. And so I'm left very frustrated because the real conversations are not being had.
Right. Right. And then you have Schellenberger, who, to a point that you brought up a little earlier, says, well, I have these contacts, but he's unwilling to give any evidence that the contacts have given him or names or anything like that. And I understand that. Like, I understand that he wants to protect his contacts, and that's part of journalistic integrity. I respect that. But it's the same as having no evidence at all. You know? Like, Schellenberger could have made up all of this shit and be making up all of his contacts as well, and made Immaculate Constellation up out of whole cloth, complete fabrication, and it would be exactly the same. You know, I have no way of knowing that he didn't do that.
Yeah.
It's all trust me. Trust me, bro.
Yeah, and as interesting as the whole hearing was to listen to, that's kind of the vibe. It was just like, well, trust me. And the vibe was also, I know this sounds completely crazy to say, but I really think this is, and honestly, this is just my gut, really. But I think Elizondo buys the bullshit. I think he is not a hoaxer. I think he is a good guy. I'm just going to say, he seems, this could all change, but he seems like a good guy, like a good man who has been hoaxed. I
was a little critical. I think we were a little critical of the last time we talked about Elizondo when his book Imminent. Imminent. I'm getting that. When Elizondo's book Imminent came out, I think we were a little critical of him, probably overly critical, because, I mean, seeing him go in front of that panel and testifying like that took some balls. It did. So yeah, I believe that Elizondo believes every word that he's saying. I really think so. And I mean, you know, to Elizondo's credit, Elizondo also, he was in Philly and he showed a photo of a craft that he called a mothership, and it turned out that that craft was actually a chandelier in a reflection in a window. Yeah. And then he came out and he was like, I'm sorry, I was wrong. This was incorrect. And so good on him for doing that.
Yeah, I think he has integrity.
Yeah, I think so too.
Which a lot of, I think, skeptics would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But he seems like a guy that has integrity to me, and he just seems like he's being, you know, completely hoodwinked by somebody, by maybe many people.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, we talked about his time in the DoD and how he was folded into this remote viewing program, which I suspect is all a big smoke and mirrors operation to just muddy the water and try to keep our allies and our enemies from knowing the kind of tech that we have. You know, Gallaudet, who was there, the rear admiral, he seems to be of the opinion that, well, he does believe that they're alien spacecraft, but he seems to be of the opinion that disclosure isn't happening because it would show weaknesses in our military defense. Like, if there are things in our airspace and we don't know what they are, alien or otherwise, that makes us look bad to the general public, and it makes us look vulnerable to our allies and our enemies.
Yeah, it's very
and
true.
that is bad from a defense standpoint, no matter how you cut it.
Yes, it's very true.
So we have to take these things into account when we think about how the information is being presented. And who is doing the presenting, and, you know, are there people whose sole intention is just to make things as confusing as possible? And did they get their claws in Elizondo?
And did they get their claws in Schellenberger? Because why
Right.
him? Why not a better journalist? I said this before in another episode, but
I know.
and I don't mean to repeat myself. It's just that I still don't understand why, after the hearing, why him? Is it because he's the only one that will listen? Because this is kind of a crazy subject? Or is it because he is a very convenient mark?
It's a great question. I don't know why Schellenberger. It doesn't make sense, you know, why they trust him, aside from the fact that he was probably handpicked by, like, Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, you know, and the other people who are already involved in this space.
Why not Leslie Keane?
That's a really good question, actually. Leslie Keane is deeply involved, and you would think that she would be the one, unless they wanted somebody who was fresh to the topic.
Yeah,
Maybe? I don't
to
know.
make it seem more legitimate, bring a new, fresh journalist in.
Right. Leslie Keane, of course, was one of the pair, Leslie Keane and Ralph Blumenthal, who broke the story initially in 2017. They were the first ones to release the Go Fast video, along with the Tic Tac video and the other one, which was, I forget what the name of it was, but that other video, there were three. Gimbal.
Oh.
The Gimbal video.
The gimbal video. Okay.
Yeah. Elizondo, in his testimony, claimed that these crafts that have been observed are not the creation of any government, but are funded by black budgets hidden from the government and from taxpayers. And he also said, iconically, "We are not alone in the cosmos," which was probably, like, the greatest takeaway. That was the thing that I saw quoted in all the reporting around this. We are not alone in the cosmos. So Elizondo seems to be of the belief, and again, his hands are tied by all of the contracts that he's under, but he seems to be of the belief that we have recovered crafts that have crashed. Maybe they were shot down, maybe they malfunctioned, we don't really know. We'll talk about the shot down hypothesis a little bit later in another news item. But Elizondo believes that we recovered these crashed crafts and have reverse engineered them and are now using that technology to have our own crafts and devices in the airspace. And that these are being done on black budgets that no one knows about. Not the government, not the taxpayers, and that may not even be directly connected to the government.
Yeah, and what we do know is that, what's the senator?
Harry Reid.
We do know that Harry Reid funneled millions of dollars into Bigelow.
Into Robert Bigelow's
Aerospace.
Bigelow Aerospace, yes. And Skinwalker Ranch back in the day when Robert Bigelow was associated with that.
Right,
Yes.
which is one of those things that you could say is a black budget project that researches.
I mean, it was. And I mean, they were researching werewolves. They were researching remote viewing and life after death and all of these things.
But also potential alien spacecraft that's crashed and been collected.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
spacecraft.
anything goes with this
and
stuff.
specifically to the Stars Academy and the Blink 182 guy, Justin DeLong.
I think it's
Jason DeLong? Tom DeLong.
Tom DeLong.
Tom DeLong.
Yeah.
My brain got confused with Justin Long. Tom DeLong, to the Stars Academy, claims that they have a piece of recovered spacecraft that they've been testing and they've been running all of this stuff on. They're another one of these that are like private contractor doing this research, you know.
So we know that's gone now. That's been shut down.
Yes.
Or Bigelow shut it down. Nobody shut. I don't think anybody shut it down, but it's just done. Like they just.
Yeah, it's over.
They just stopped their research. But it makes me wonder. You know, that was kind of a public thing. Like we knew about that happening, But maybe what happened was they realized that they didn't want it to be so public next time. And so now we have a similar situation going on with another billionaire or millionaire out there who's got all this money being funneled in this private company of the scale of maybe like a Elon Musk or smaller,
Right.
Who is researching this stuff. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just speculating. We don't know. But I mean, I think that was the hint that they were saying that there's all this money being funneled into these black
And that would be Immaculate Constellation, right? That's the assumption is wherever this money is being funneled, it's being funneled into the Immaculate Constellation project, which is supposedly reverse engineering these downed crafts that we have. Lou Elizondo also called our incompetence surrounding these crafts and reporting on them and things, quote, an intelligence failure eclipsing 9/11 by a magnitude, and claimed that they are specifically targeting military airspace. Which I don't believe, by the way. I don't think that they're targeting military airspace, assuming that,
any of this is true.
Assuming that any of this is true. But you can't deny that there are more UAPs that are seen in military airspace than not. That's a fact. But I don't think you can count out the fact that there's simply more detection-capable equipment there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're looking, you're going to see.
Yeah, more instruments, more eyeballs on the sky means more sightings, and more chance that some of these sightings will be unexplained or unexplainable.
Yeah.
And that was a sentiment that was echoed by Gold, who was kind of a voice of reason. He wasn't.
He was. I have my opinions, but he was. He definitely was.
And I mean, I know that he didn't specifically debunk the Go Fast video, but he also wasn't asked to. We don't know how he feels about the Go Fast video.
Yeah, we don't.
But he called this idea that we're seeing more UAPs over military airspace sensor bias, and said essentially the same thing that I did. You have a lot of things pointed at the sky, you're going to see more things. And if normally 10% of what we see in the sky is unexplainable, I'm not basing that number on anything, but say 10% of what we see in the sky is unexplainable, well then 10% of a bunch of instruments over a military base is going to be much higher than 10% in the middle of like nowhere, Montana. Right?
Yes.
He was also quick to point out that you have to consider the quality of the equipment doing the testing. And he said that, I love this quote, if we were studying black holes using fighter jet cockpit cameras, we would probably not know that much about black holes.
That was a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So remember, if you're walking through the woods and you take a photo of Bigfoot with your, 2006 point and shoot camera, it's going to be radically different than if you take it with your 2024 iPhone. It's going to be radically different if you take it with your 2024 like high-end DSLR. So consider where that stuff is coming from. That's like the Tic Tac video that, to me, it doesn't look like anything. It's just this weird blob that's kind of hovering around. I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah, and we won't know what to make of a lot of this stuff until we have the right technology pointed at it. And I think that's such a good point.
And that's why Gold wants NASA to be tapped to investigate these reports and cross-reference them against NASA's database, a huge database of sightings, incidents, not only of UAPs, but just all the shit that's in the sky.
Why aren't we already doing this?
I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. We should be. It might be because of discretion, things that we don't want to be too public-facing. NASA is not, there's not really that much of a closed-off, high, what's the right word? High security branch of NASA, But yeah, I think that would help weed out anomalies like meteors, satellites, drones, weather anomalies, That would help identify things that are legitimately unexplained.
Yeah.
And yes, I think that NASA, we gave the Go Fast video to NASA, and the NASA physicists were like, oh, that's parallax. It's probably a bird. Boom. Okay, so that one's out. Let's keep doing this. Let's keep it happen. Let's see if there are any incidents there that we could say, whoa, this is weird.
Right, and there could be.
Yeah. Schellenberger talked extensively about private contracts. And despite his report, he still failed to produce any evidence that could confirm Immaculate Constellation, the program, aside from his unnamed sources. He did say that he was informed of new cases which prevented circular reporting, which is great if it's true, because that's something that's all too common in the Fortean world. I mean, that's where you're talking about how many people heard the stories of the Aztec UFO crash and then just reported them over and over again and built a mythology out of that. If you want more information about the Aztec UFO crash, we did a 5-parter on that. It's really a wonderful series. I love it. You go check that out. But basically, it was a faked UFO crash, so a couple guys could sell non-working divining rods in the middle of Colorado, and it was so investigated by the government that it got conflated with the Roswell UFO crash, and it's just made UFO history a big mess in the U.S. And so, if Schellenberger is telling the truth and he is correct, then hopefully we're not getting this kind of contamination from older disproved reports. One of my favorite moments of the hearing was actually brought to us by Lauren Boebert, who subscribes to the utterly baseless QAnon conspiracy theory. She asked the panel if they knew about a hybrid program in the military. Everyone said no, probably because this is reality and not some sci-fi channel midnight movie. I've heard rumors of this thing before, usually folded in with David Icke and his reptilian conspiracy shit. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you'll hear about alien abductions with the victims being experimented on, having their semen or ovaries removed to help breed a new race of hybrids. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing might even have its roots in the often misrepresented idea that Stalin was trying to create ape-human hybrids for the communists. But it was just wonderful to see someone as batshit as Lauren Boebert get immediately shut down by all 4 guys who were just like, no.
Yeah, but that's the kind of shit that people like her and her ilk love.
Oh my God.
Because, you're hiding something then.
And that's how they're going to take it too. They're going to immediately jump to, why are you hiding this?
Mm-hmm. Well, and she opened up by saying something about how she thinks the earth is flat. And I can't tell if she was joking or not, because that's the world we live in right now in this country.
She probably wasn't, dude.
Probably not, but I don't know. That's why it's so scary right now in America, because you can't make a joke like that as Lauren Boebert or as anyone in that party. And you have to be like, really? Do you really think that?
It's so frustrating.
These people get voted in, guys. Speaking
of crazy and stupid, the whole thing was led by Nancy Mace, who immediately started selling UAP merch on her site following the hearing.
She's such a grifter.
Yeah, which is a really bad... Even if you are legit believing this, that's such a bad look.
It's a bad look.
And if I was Elizondo, I would be furious. If I was Schellenberger and I bought into this, I would be fucking furious that she was turning it into a grift.
That's what these people do.
Mace herself, but it's a special kind of shithead. Mm-hmm. Just so you know, just last week when we're reporting this, she spoke out in opposition to transgender restrooms. She is afraid of the incoming rep Sarah McBride, an openly transgender senator from Delaware, who's assuming office this January.
Yeah.
So, Nancy Mace is a piece of shit.
Yeah, she is a piece of shit.
And it's really despicable that she was like the voice of this.
Yep.
That's who's representing this. That's no different than having fucking Matt Gaetz in the other one.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, these people are a representation of a certain party in this country. And once again, These people were voted in.
And I think that there is something to that particular type of person. Your Nancy Mace, your Lauren Boeberts, even Tim Burchett's this way too. That they are trying to create a destabilization here and a distrust, because it's good for them if there are top secret government programs, because that means that the government is lying to you and you can't trust them. And that's good for their agenda.
And they're sort of placing themselves in the public sphere as cowboys and outsiders.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I'm in the government, but no, I'm a good guy because I ask the tough questions and I don't trust the people that I work with. And,
Right.
you know, I'm a straight shooter. And it's like, no, you're sowing distrust and you are causing a lot of issues.
And Mace even did that herself. She kept saying Immaculate Constellation and like how bad it was to even say it out loud. And then she made some offhanded comment about like, oh, come at me, bro, or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, go fuck yourself, man. There's actually, this is a legitimate fucking thing. Like there are aircraft pilots, there are commercial aircraft pilots who have said, I saw something weird up there. I was concerned it was going to crash into my plane, and you're making a joke and you're selling fucking t-shirts about this?
Oh yeah, they're leveraging it politically for themselves, and they're selling shit for it. And I wish that people who were reasonable were actually sitting there asking harder questions and not Boebert, not Mace. You know, we needed reasonable people up there talking to them, heading this off, like really dealing with this, because there's legitimate problems here that they're discussing.
I'm going to throw this out there in case any of the representatives who are involved in any of this shit listen to our podcast. I have a sneaking suspicion that they don't. But in case any of the representatives who have any kind of sway can hear this and take this away, next time one of these things happens and you have this panel and you have this opportunity to talk to some of these people, get a fucking physicist in there. Get someone who knows what they're talking about and have them question them with you.
Yeah.
I don't want to see our fucking senator who is also like smiling at a fucking Wendy's to get reelected. I don't want them to be the ones who are investigating this because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I want people who know what they're talking about talking to these people.
Yeah, just because they were elected does not mean that they're intelligent people.
No, not at all. And in fact, the intelligent people who get elected surround themselves with people who do know what they're talking about and what they're doing. In response to the hearing, the new director of AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, his name is John Kozlowski, he testified the following Tuesday. He reviewed several cases, including the Go Fast, and explained parallax to the panel. But he also detailed a case of transmedium UAPs, or ones which travel through different mediums. This one went from the air into the water. This was shot on a thermal camera and appeared to show a UAP first splitting in half before entering and exiting the water near Rafael Hernandez Airport in Puerto Rico. He explained that the UAP was likely two objects floating close together like a pair of balloons. They were so close together that it appeared to be one object. And then when it split, it was merely just the balloon separating. And then as far as entering and exiting the water, I thought this was fascinating. He explained that the object's temperature, because it was shot on a thermal camera, matched the background. And when it does that, it can disappear from the thermal camera.
Oh.
Because the thermal camera, in order to piece together what it sees here, it gets different temperatures from different pieces, right? So you and I sitting here across this table, you would have a thermal signature and I would have a thermal signature, and we would be separated because the colder table between us would help separate our thermal signature. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but if we touched hands, we would combine.
Right.
Essentially.
Yeah. So as these balloons drifted closer to the ocean's surface, they grew colder and they blended in with the water, effectively vanishing. And then when they elevated again, their temperature changed and they registered on the cameras again. So it looked like they were entering and exiting the water, but they were actually changing their temperature.
Yeah, it's like the Predator. It's like
totally
Arnold
like the Predator,
Schwarzenegger when he covered himself in mud so he'd be invisible to the Predator.
It is exactly like that.
Yep.
He should have just showed a clip from Predator after.
I know. He should have turned his chair around and put his baseball cap on backwards and, all right, kids, let me tell you what this is all about.
Allow me to show you this documentary.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God, they would have a field day with that then, man. Despite him coming forward and giving this testimony after that. And remember, this is the head of Arrow. This is the group that's supposed to be the reference point. It's supposed to be the one that you go and talk to about this shit. Mm-hmm. He still did not reference Immaculate Constellation, and that remains a mystery. Now, the DoD has said we don't have any program by that name, but I mean, we're kind of at a loss here. So until Schellenberger produces his sources, or at least some shred of evidence of their involvement, it's really hard to prove or disprove any of this. Mm-hmm. And lastly, before we close this topic, I want to talk about the way everyone was talking at the briefing and this phrase, non-human intelligence, NHI. Mm-hmm. We keep, this is something that has been repeated since last year and Grush. Non-human intelligence, NHI. And for the first time watching this, I had kind of a bit of inspiration, if you will, as to what they might be referring to. Because I think most people, when you're talking about strange crafts and then non-human intelligence, we immediately jump to like, oh, aliens, right? Mm-hmm. We're looking for Greys, we're looking for the Predator, right? Something like that. But it seemed like their focus was more and more on AI-controlled crafts rather than traditionally piloted ones. And I'm starting to believe that all this cagey non-human intelligence quoting actually refers to machine learning, not extraterrestrial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And that was almost exactly confirmed by Michael Gold at the end.
Yes, he said it.
Yeah, he in a closing answer said that he believes unexplained reports of intelligently controlled crafts were likely piloted by AI. Mm-hmm. That would be a fascinating concern for the Department of Defense that would not need aliens to be part of it. Because essentially that would be, okay, so we have crafts of unknown origin, meaning from for the sake of argument, let's say from another country, right? Not from America. We have these crafts that are coming into our airspace and they are behaving intelligently. They're not pre-programmed. They're not piloted. So we need a phrase that means not on a pre-programmed flight path and not piloted by somebody inside the craft or somebody controlling it remotely. But these crafts might actually be learning based around like their surroundings. They're essentially Roombas at that point, right?
Yes, they are.
You know?
I just, the last thing I want to say is I think it's absolutely astounding that when they went around, except for Gold, who said, I need more evidence, we need more evidence. Everybody basically said there are aliens. There are aliens out there. There is intelligent life in touch with us. And
Elizondo even said that he had like a throwaway quote about how there were bodies that had been recovered, but they were recovered before he was born, which is basically saying we got shit from Roswell. Because Elizondo was born in, I believe, I should get this accurate because I don't want to date him too much. He was born in 1966.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so definitely Roswell. I mean, I would almost guarantee that he was talking about Roswell and the bodies that were uncovered at Roswell, which were not actually uncovered at Roswell. But yeah, to learn more about that, because there were no bodies originally associated with Roswell. We'll talk about this at some point, but basically when the first reports came out in 1947, it was just the crashed craft. It was not any bodies recovered. The bodies recovered came from the stories of the Aztec saucer crash. And then, like we said earlier in this episode, things got kind of messy as the circular reporting happened. And then it wasn't until like the 1980s that Roswell came out on top. And Roswell has been sort of the hub of all of these rumors. But yeah, there were no bodies recovered from Roswell. Anyway.
Right. That's all. I just think it's amazing that they all basically said that.
They all believe that, except for Gold, who thinks that it's not.
So it's interesting, and I don't know. We'll wait to hear more. But
yeah, we will.
Nothing solid.
Yep. So this is the day after we did the recording for the Fortean Roundup, but there's a couple of things that we need to address really quickly because I got one thing wrong and then we found some additional information about something else.
So we're cutting into the episode to make a correction or
Slash. Okay. So first off, anyone who listened to our last episode on the Highgate Vampire, I apologize. I was incorrect because I said that the zombies that consumed salt were kept under control through the consumption of it. Like if zombies ate salt, they would continue to be under control, and it's the opposite. Salt makes zombies realize that they are zombies and breaks them free of control.
Yeah, I think then they attack
they attack the person who's controlling them, which is supposedly the voodoo harnesser, whoever. Right. So that's our first correction. Now, secondly, and equally importantly, I think, maybe a little bit more importantly, we got some additional information regarding Michael Gold, who was at the hearing with Elizondo and Schellenberger and Gallaudet. So while Googling Michael Gold, I found the Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, just a page on the biographers of presenters. So at one point, Michael Gold presented at this university. And while presenting there in 2015, he was credited as the director of DC operations and business growth for Bigelow Aerospace LLC. So what that means is that Michael Gold is and had ties to Robert Bigelow, who, of course, was the one who struck the deal with Harry Reid to siphon off millions of dollars from the U.S. Congressional budget to go to Bigelow Aerospace, Bigelow's pet project. This is Skinwalker Ranch. This is a whole bunch of development in UAPs and things like that.
Yeah, and this is kind of what they were talking about fighting against, these like private entities, black budgets, money from the government going into them. He was behind one of those things.
Exactly that. And that's why it's so fucked up.
It's really interesting.
So this guy is on this panel that is supposed to be this sort of like transparency and follow the money and let's figure out what's going on with all these black budgets. But you served on one of these programs a decade ago.
Yeah, and if anything, what he should be saying is, I served on these programs. I know how dangerous it is and how bad it is. I'm telling you right now, we need to bring this stuff to light. But that was conveniently not mentioned.
Right.
So I find that to be very suspicious. I think it still stands what I said. I think he sounds like a very reasonable person. He had some really interesting things to say. But I did not know his background. We did not know his background.
They did not make that public at all.
At all. And God, is that important.
It's a gigantic conflict of interest.
Huge conflict of interest. And
it explains why, once again, we saw Jeremy Corbell sitting in the background. Again, it's hard to miss Jeremy Corbell. They had a couple of close-up shots on, I think, Gold, and you could just see Corbell's tatted up hands behind him.
He's cool looking. Yeah.
But yeah, Jeremy Corbell, again, he's connected to Bigelow. He's connected to Skinwalker Ranch. He did the doc on Skinwalker Ranch. Like all of these people are circling the same places. They're traveling in these same circles. We really, more than ever, we need some outside influence on this. We need somebody who's going to be the voice of reason who doesn't have connections to Bigelow.
And we have to be careful because when you say that somebody worked at NASA, I always say NASA, it doesn't mean that they're scientists. He was an office administrator at NASA. I said it again.
It really does sound like
I know.
NASA.
I can't say it. He was in their international relations or internal relations department in NASA.
He was the associate administrator for the Office of International and Interagency Relations.
Right.
I don't know exactly what all of those words mean when you put them together. It feels kind of like a project manager / HRE director kind of role.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't speak to that, but it is important, I think, to point out that whoever held that position was not engaged at NASA as a researcher or a scientist. Yeah.
We in general, I think we need to be careful to be like, oh yeah, for me to just like walk up and be like, yeah, I worked at Boeing.
Right.
And then immediately my brain is, oh, you worked on those really top secret projects. Cool. No, actually, I was I was an administrator in HR at Boeing. Like, that's kind of like
Right.
what it...
Yeah.
So you can't just assume these things.
Exactly.
And I think that's what they rely on. They rely on people like us not looking into it and not creating those connections. So we got to create those connections. We got to look.
We got to shine the light. We got to shine the light.
He oversaw projects that were scientifically based, but he was not necessarily a scientist. He has a law degree from University of Pennsylvania. He is a man that sits behind a desk, which is absolutely fine and great. But
according to his LinkedIn, he went to the University of Pennsylvania Law School.
It was really well presented because he seemed like a NASA scientist behind that desk. And that was excellent work by whoever set that up, because it fooled me. You know, I feel like somebody threw a pie in my face, you know. But it's just, I think this stuff is really important to acknowledge, and that's why we're jumping in to correct that in real time. And, you know, the episode is going to continue now, but just so that you all know, this is what Matt actually dug into recently. So.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's get back to the episode. Now, in our next news item, to balance out Lou Elizondo's measured and thoughtful discourse, we have his lawyer, Danny Sheehan. Danny Sheehan was all over the news this month, claiming that aliens are on the brink of invading Earth to save it from total collapse. And he also said that there is a secret UFO base in the ocean near Baja, California, that was used by hundreds of crafts and continues to be used. Mm-hmm. And apparently there's also an alien base in Sedona, Arizona.
Right. You know what? I appreciate that. I hope somebody saves us, because we really need to be saved at this point.
Yeah. So this was reported on the Daily Star, although this was reported a bunch of different places. Sheehan claims seriously that aliens are mantis people wielding advanced weaponry. He actually calls them mantis people. Mm-hmm. And he also claims that the aliens are stealing human eggs and sperm to make hybrids. So maybe he's the one who's been trickling this information to Lauren Boebert, and they can both go live in Crazy Camp together.
I hope that they do. They can start their own death cult somewhere.
The thing that always gets me about this shit is, where is the goddamn proof? This isn't hard. Sedona isn't that big. Like just go there. You know? Like, if there is a fucking alien base there, just go there. This is an open letter to Danny Sheehan. Danny Sheehan, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are.
Definitely.
Let's take a goddamn road trip. Danny Sheehan, I will pay your gas money if you take me to Sedona and you point me at this alien base. I'll pay for your gas, and I will buy you fucking McDonald's on the way, and we can go see some aliens together.
Yeah, it's not like people don't want to know. It's not like anyone's stopping him from showing us.
Sedona isn't even like that remote of a place.
No. I don't understand. I feel like the only thing he's going to really show you is a yoga studio and where to buy some turquoise. Like, it's really not that big of a deal, guys.
This actually, I feel like this is actually an incredible documentary, and now I want to make like a road documentary of us and Danny Sheehan traveling across the country to buy turquoise and not see aliens.
Yeah. We don't find aliens, but we find friendship.
Oh, man. I always wanted to go to Cannes.
I feel like this is how you can get there.
This would take us to Cannes.
Yeah, it would, because otherwise you're not going to get there. Because, you know, those film festivals, it's all about, so...
we don't need to get into the film festival rhetoric on this podcast.
No, we don't. Lou Elizondo, man, he's surrounding himself.
And this is a continuing problem with Elizondo, right? Because you have these hearings where he seems he presents himself very well. He feels legitimate. He seems like he has very important concerns for what's going on in the government and with these programs and all of that. And then he picks an insane conspiracy theorist as his lawyer, who's gone on record talking about mantis people stealing our sperm. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what are you thinking, dude? Like, look at the optics of how you're presenting yourself.
Mm-hmm. This says a lot about you with who you surround yourself with, for sure.
Exactly. Like think about this.
I don't know.
Because you can't have it both ways, unfortunately.
No, you
right?
really can't.
You can't. This is why people don't take it seriously, and this is why everybody laughs at it. And this is why you get this like crazy Bober hybrid shit mixed up in all of this.
I know. You kind of have to wonder, like, why the hell do we not have the more reasonable people up there in the panel asking the questions? Why do we have people like Bobert and Mace asking questions?
Right.
The Baja California area, that's Isla Guadalupe, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he said that there is activity there that...
This is the one that there are hundreds of crafts coming in and out of this area, the water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and who tells him this? Who has told him this?
I don't know. I didn't find sources on any of this.
Okay.
His sources, anyway.
All right.
Yeah.
He just picked a very, like, random but not so random remote place. I mean, this is a military base. It's a Mexican military base.
Sure, yeah.
But it's very isolated. The only people that inhabit it are scientists, military personnel, operating a weather station.
Right.
And fishermen and farmers.
Yeah.
And because it's a biosphere reserve, you need a permit from the Mexican government to even visit. So it's not super frequented, and so to see activity on it on and off like that, especially military weather-related activity, is not crazy. So if anybody's looking, they would see this activity and maybe they would misconstrue it as something alien or...
It's possible, yeah.
You know.
But there again, like, if you have fishers there, those are just civilians, right?
Yeah, they are.
Can't you just take some pictures?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that there is civilian access. And so it's not top secret.
If this isn't top secret, if we have civilians just coming and going, then there should be more evidence than Danny Sheehan being like, hey, look, there's some aliens there, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't be that hard to go to Baja and find the bar where those anglers go to and be like, hey, did you see a UFO today? You know?
Yeah. I know, part of me thinks he just closed his eyes and pointed to the map.
It's entirely possible, man. Yeah. And then in our final bit of alien weirdness, Ross Coulthart is now worried about all the aliens we're killing with our microwave weapons. So...
Yeah, it's really sad. The bodies just keep piling up and we don't know what to do with it all. I know. Let's make alien meat into it. Let's grind it up into the goo and feed it to our pets.
I think that's a genius idea.
You know what? You got to use it all.
I mean, that
no
is...
waste.
We are about to become millionaires, and I hope that you're ready for that.
I'm so ready for it.
Our alien paste. Alien pet paste. Pet paste. Alien pet paste.
Oh, alien pet paste. Or APP.
APP.
Anyway, yes, so...
Yeah. So Coulthart is an Australian journalist and UFO advocate, and he was a huge supporter of David Grush last year, and he believes that the US government is in possession of downed UAPs and their non-human pilots, and he has provided zero evidence for any of these claims.
As usual.
He appeared in a News Nation interview saying, I am told that we, the American public, should be informed are using high-pulse microwave weapons against non-human craft, and we are bringing these craft down so that we can retrieve them and salvage their technology. God knows what we are doing to the alien beings inside those craft. I hope we treat them with respect. Heaven help us if there is ever a reckoning for the crimes and indeed immoralities we have committed in the name of national security.
This guy should be putting all of his energy into the real life terrible things we are doing in this world.
For real.
Like, come on. If you want to talk about evidence, there's a lot of evidence about other things that we're doing right now that we could probably stop. But, okay, we're going to worry about aliens that there's no evidence about.
Yeah, and everybody's waving their hands about like, oh no, won't someone think of the aliens?
Won't someone think of the fucking aliens? Wow. I got some people they could be thinking of instead. Also, by the way, this guy probably believes in alien abductions if he believes in this crap. So...
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about how the alien on human abuse has been going over the past few decades, many hundreds of years probably. You know, if we're going to believe, let's just say it's all true, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, fine.
That look on your face. it's like, okay. But we have long believed that aliens have been abducting and abusing us, which we will get to later on.
Yes.
Why? Where is the outrage?
Oh, so you're saying this is payback? You're saying they deserve this.
Well,
they deserve to be made into goo.
I think they should be made into goo, first of all.
Okay.
But also...
You heard it here first.
Yeah. Hot take here. But I think that why is he upset about the people that have been abducted? Does he only care about aliens being injured?
They did not talk about the people that were abducted in this News Nation interview.
Well, they should have asked those hard questions.
I don't think News Nation asks hard questions about aliens.
No. It's probably a lot like the Elizondo hearing.
News Nation's one of these places that reports on all of this shit, and I love them because I can always count on News Nation to deliver us stories for our Fortean Roundups. And I hope that nothing ever happens to them because I don't know what we would do without them. But
or the Daily Star.
Yeah, or the Daily Star, yeah. But I don't think that they are, how can I put this? I don't think that they are the best place to get news. They're not, I like to use the phrase, a bastion of journalistic integrity. They're not a bastion of journalistic integrity.
Right.
My suspicion is that these comments are in reference to the various alien autopsy rumors that have been circulating since the 90s that we talked a little bit about with Elizondo. And the alleged alien interview tapes that were masterfully faked, possibly by Whitley Strieber. If you haven't seen any of the alien interviews, they're really, really cool. They have this alien head in the dark and interview them apparently, and they respond and stuff, and it's really kind of cool. But it does seem like we're abusing that alien in the alien interview. But like I said, they were very clearly fake. They were probably faked by Whitley Strieber. Either way, I think we should definitely have a plan to host a pizza party for the aliens if we ever do shoot them down, because I think it's the least we can do since we are like shooting down their craft and damaging it.
You think a pizza party is appropriate for that?
Yeah, we'll buy them some personal pan pizzas.
Okay,
I think it'd be good, right?
I guess so.
They can get their own toppings.
So you're going to make them work? You're going to make them put the stuff on their pizza?
No, they just tell me what they want.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I guess that's okay. But don't put them back behind the counter making their own. You know how you had to do that? Okay, I'm aging myself. But when you were a kid in the 90s.
Is this the Pizza Hut thing?
The Pizza Hut thing.
Yeah.
Your part of your birthday was to go behind the counter and make your own pizza, which was just amazing. But I just don't think the aliens are going to be up for that. So making sure that they don't have to do that. They can just get the pizza.
It was cool when you were a kid and you were like, oh, awesome, I get to make my pizza my way. If someone had shot my car and forced me into a car crash and then brought me to Pizza Hut and were like, now make a pizza, it would feel like slave labor.
It would be rough. It'd be rough. But if they did that but then brought me to Pizza Hut and said, here's a pizza, I would forgive everything, honestly. So according to the Daily Mail, and according to a road worker named Jason Dobney, who filmed a massive cat, about the size of what he says way bigger than a Rottweiler, he says. So he filmed a huge black cat walking along the road, hunting prey in a nearby field. And we even have video of this. So if you want to go to the Daily Mail, you can find it. The headline is "Moment, 6-foot black cat stalks through UK field hunting prey." I really think this looks like a panther. I mean, this is pretty crazy.
This is a follow-up to our UK big cats that we've been following.
It's been long established.
For a little while.
We've been hunting.
But yeah.
It's been established that they have existed on the island, probably because of pets that have gone loose.
That's kind of the assumption. Yeah. The assumption is that because I believe it was the 1960s, the UK outlawed exotic animals. And so big cats were among them, and a lot of owners just released their cats into the wild.
Yeah.
Where they likely have no natural predators and just were allowed to, I wouldn't say run wild. I mean, I don't think that there's a massive population of big cats in the UK, but I think that there's probably enough to be a breeding
Yeah, there's a small breeding because they're around. And this is a very clear video of what, to me, I mean, I'm no animal expert, but that's a big cat.
Well, and I looked at the video. It looks to be, he claimed that it was about 100 feet away. It looks to be about 100 feet away. It looks to be a decently large creature. He said, yeah, bigger than a Rottweiler. Could very well be bigger than a Rottweiler. I found another article on this from Discover Wildlife that reported that a Dr. Luke Hunter, who is the executive director of the Big Cat Conservation Program of the Wildlife Society, called this cat a mogi, which would just be a regular type of house cat, just a large house cat, and one without a particular pedigree, just like a generic cat breed. They call them mogis in
I thought
Britain,
it was
apparently.
Moggy.
Is it Moggy?
I think it's Moggy.
Oh, I haven't heard it said, just spelled.
Okay, so I was listening to this video, and this was going to be one of my big takeaways, actually, because you said it. So I learned this word today when I was looking at this. Not today, but when I was looking at this. It was so cool. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know this word before now. So all of our British listeners were like, yeah, we know this word, you dummies. But we're like, oh, cool. So I heard the guy say it, and I think it sounded like Moggy.
Okay.
But it was great because if you listen to the video, you get to hear them talking about it and they say that word.
Any British listeners that we have, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com. Is it Moggy or is it Mogi? Rick Minter, who's the host of the Big Cat Conversation podcast, he said that it didn't appear to be heavy and deliberate enough to have too massive a bulk. So he doesn't think that it's like a huge cat. But it does. I mean, to me, it looks like it's bigger than a house cat. Our cats are not that big. And I don't know. It's a very tantalizing piece of evidence, and at least just something else here that's like, well, there's something there. If it's a house cat, it's a big ass house cat. Yeah, so this is just going to be an ongoing thing that we continue to cover. I think it's really cool that these things keep popping up. And this is one of those little cool branches of cryptozoology that's like, Bigfoot, little implausible, Nessie, a little implausible, but just big cat population living in Britain. We know that they live elsewhere. They have a food source for it. So certainly seems like something that's pretty close to possible here.
For sure.
Very, very likely. And it's cool to get video of it. Even if it's maybe 2 or 3 generations ago, it was a full-on Black Panther, and now it's sort of sized down because it's been interbreeding with smaller cat breeds that are out there or something like that. That's still fascinating, Oh,
that would be really interesting.
I wonder about the possibility of that if it's interbreeding with something that's more along the scale of like a bobcat or something like that.
I don't know anything about native British wildcats.
I know there are, I don't know if it's bobcats, but they do have, they have a cat that is larger than a house cat, but it's smaller than a panther or a cougar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, European wildcats. But yeah, I mean, there was a puma captured in Scotland in 1980. There was a Canadian lynx shot in 1903. Wow. There's plenty of reports of these. There's something there. There's something again, we're not talking about tigers, right? Something the size of tigers. We're talking about something that's like maybe lynx-ish, bobcat-ish sized. Yeah.
So this is probably the craziest story of the month.
This might be my favorite story of the month, honestly.
I think this is my favorite story too, I have to say.
All right. So give us a synopsis, EJ.
Yeah, so out of okmagazine.com, okay? I don't know this magazine.
I don't know this magazine.
Tucker Carlson claims he still has scars after he was physically mauled by a demon in his bed.
What?
What? So basically he claimed that he had an encounter with a being, and he I guess he talked about this in a YouTube series titled Christianities.
Yes. Yeah. With John Heers, who I don't know anything about John Heers, but John Heers went to Tucker Carlson's cabin in Maine, and they had a conversation about his encounter with a demon.
Right. So here's his this is his quote from the article, okay? I got attacked while I was asleep with my wife and 4 dogs and mauled, physically mauled, by a demon or by something unseen that left claw marks on my sides. They're still there.
Yeah. So for any listeners who are not all that familiar with American politics, Tucker Carlson is a right-wing political commentator and just a general asshole. And he claimed that he woke up, had some trouble breathing, and when he looked, he found bleeding and claw marks on his rib cage and his shoulder. And they didn't match his nails, which he allegedly keeps very short.
Yes, and so he walked around outside for a bit, and when he came in, his wife and the dogs were still asleep. So I think he thought that they probably would have woken up if if one of them had done it or something like that. But.
Well, it seems like they should have woken up if a goddamn demon mauled him.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that a demon crawled into his bed and like scratched him, but didn't wake up his wife or his 4 dogs? Also, are you sure it wasn't your dog?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And the craziest thing about this is that this is the thing that got him reading the Bible again and got him, it made him more religious, I think, after this. So,
well, yes, because he called up an evangelical friend to verify what happened to him.
Yeah.
Which, surprise, surprise, the friend was like, oh, yeah, that was a demon.
Yeah, I mean, consider your source, buddy. Consider who you're asking here.
It's a little bit like going to a restaurant and being like, should I order food here?
Yeah, exactly.
Should I get some food while I'm here?
Yeah.
And the restaurant's like, no, I don't think so. The food here's terrible. Like, no, you call up an evangelical, you're like, I think I got attacked by a demon. They're like, yes, you did.
Absolutely, you did. I think it's actually goes to show how important it is to have a good group of friends who are well grounded on this planet.
Who are going to call you on your bullshit.
Yeah, like you need to have good people around you. It's very important to have just solid friends that are rational. It's so important. Anyway, I love this one because I have actually had similar experiences. Well, first of all, I've had dreams of being stabbed. And then I wake up and I wake up to my cat with a blank look on its face, needing me in the legs. And so, in the middle of the night. So, and then I have claw marks. I have blood on my legs. I have had, the cat slept with me when I was growing up, and there were multiple occasions of the cat attacking me because maybe I moved, and I would wake up, and and maybe the cat was, like, not in the room anymore, or, but if animals sleep with you, there's a very good chance that you can get scratched by an animal. Also, if you're having a dream and it's an intense dream, you can hurt yourself. Even if your nails are short, if you have a chip in your nail or something like that, you can really hurt yourself scratching accidentally.
There were four dogs in bed with him. And I know he's rich and stuff, but you got 2 humans, 4 canines in this same bed, even if it's a king-size bed. That's not a ton of space. I've slept with 1 dog in a twin bed, and I've almost been pushed to the floor.
Yeah, and your dog was a big dog, too.
Yeah.
But that's 4 Rottweilers and a wife on probably a king or California king bed.
Were they Rottweilers? Did he have Rottweilers?
Am I thinking of the last...
Yeah, I don't think it's Rottweilers.
I'm thinking of the last news item. He slept with big cats.
No, he had. I actually looked it up. He had they're small. They're smaller dogs. They're like mid-sized dogs. They're not like Labrador type size dogs. It's not like he's sleeping with Great Danes or something like that. But he's also not sleeping with Pomeranians. They're like mid-sized dogs. I forget specifically what they were because I never pay attention to dog breeds anyway. But. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, still, I don't know how big your bed needs to be to fit all of those bodies in it, but that's a lot of things.
It is, and honestly, like in my experience anyway with animals, like the bigger the dog, the blunter the claw.
For sure.
And so if you have a smallish dog, it's going to have sharper claws, and it's not going to take as much to draw that blood.
Yes, absolutely.
I have had Rottweiler. Bigger dogs get up on top of me enthusiastically and have cut me. Like, not cut me, though. Like, that's the thing.
She was so sweet, but yes.
Oh, no, I mean, I love it. It's great. But, like, their claws are so blunt that when they get on you, it's almost like they cause a bruise. Yeah. It's like, it's not even like, it doesn't even really break your skin unless they're biting you, I guess, or really trying to hurt you. If they're playing, they're just going to maybe bruise you or cause some redness. But little dogs will smaller dogs will break the skin easier. Yep. I think.
Yep.
And cats, forget it, man. They will cut the shit out of you, those little demons.
Yeah.
So, I think this is just the funniest story. It really goes to show how the brain works. Like, it's just interesting to me how, he felt as if he needed to call his evangelical friend and that made him more religious, where somebody else might wake up and say, oh, I'm sleeping with an animal. I was scratched by an animal that I was sleeping with.
It makes me wonder if he hasn't spent that much time sleeping with animals.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Yeah.
I just don't think he spent much time thinking.
That's also probably true.
Like, just think about it.
Dude. Yeah, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. Figure it out. Yeah.
Anyway, that's an interesting story, I guess.
I have a good button for it.
Oh, what's your button?
Carlson knows for sure that it wasn't his wife because she hasn't touched him in 20 years. Boom!
Whoa!
Boom! Take that, Tucker Carlson.
Whoa, was that in the news item or did you just come up with that?
No, I just came up with that.
Ah, nice burn.
Yeah,
Woo!
burn. Sick
What a
burn.
burn. That's a sick burn. All right. Ah, man.
So in our next news item, according to a paranormal investigator, ghosts are dying again. This was a Halloween report coming from the Daily Star, one of our favorite news sources. This is a guy named Brian Sterling Vett, a paranormal investigator and stuntman who claims that he has compiled data from 100 reportedly haunted locations and found that most ghosts are recently deceased people, meaning less than 100 years dead. And he said this, in simple terms, the second law of thermodynamics tells us that energy tends to disperse and degrade over time. I would argue that our findings show ghosts do conform to the second law of thermodynamics as they appear to run out of energy.
I gotta say, I kind of love that idea. I don't know if I don't think ghosts are real, but I just think that's a really cool, fun theory to have, to attach to it. Like,
Yeah, he wrote all of this up in an article on his paranormal rescue site. He runs one of these ghost hunting groups called Paranormal Rescue. And he called this in particular Project Half-Life. It's very hard to find information on this. I had to go to their site specifically. If you just Google Project Half-Life, you get mods for the game Half-Life. But apparently, he determined the age of spirits using spiritual communication methods such as the spirit box, ITC, instrumental transcommunication. For a more in-depth look into why the spirit box isn't real or communicating with ghosts, check out our Halloween special that we just released. But briefly, a spirit box sweeps through radio frequencies rapidly, so only bits of broadcast come through. And paranormal investigators believe these frequencies can be manipulated by spirits to communicate. But they're not. It's just random bits of radio noise that get recontextualized as answers to questions after the fact. You're listening for spirit voices, which primes you to find them. We call that apophenia, right? And that was the spirit box itself, and all of the technology came from an inventor named William O'Neill, who was proven to be faking the entire thing in the 1990s. Again, check out our Halloween special. We go into detail on all of this. So his method of collecting this data was based on flawed technology. And I guess also he was like asking the ghost, how old are you? I suppose?
Well, you have to identify the ghost and then look at the ghost's gravestone or know the ghost's history.
Sure.
And then you can kind of go from there.
That's if you can pair the ghost with a grave, too.
That's if you know who the ghost is. Yeah, at all.
Right.
Like, if it's Henry VIII for sure, then you can...
But this also calls up a problem that I've had with a lot of these investigations and these investigators when they do things like this. Why... Have you ever considered that the ghosts are lying?
Yeah.
We have this weird concept, and you see it in all of the ghost hunting shows and all of that stuff, that for some reason, ghosts automatically always tell the truth. Anything that they get is always considered absolute truth.
You know when they're lying?
When they're demons.
Yes.
Yeah, demons
That's
lie.
That's the only time that they're lying. So this happens in Ghost Adventures all the time. They talk to the spirit of the father, you know?
Right.
And it's like, oh, the father, there was a weird laugh, or he said something weird, and then, oh, there's a demon. The demon is controlling your spirit father.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah, that's what it always is. But how come, why not? Like, what happens when there's a ghost that's and you're like, how old are you? And the ghost is like, well, that's an inappropriate question to ask. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, really? God.
I'm as old as the ghost I feel.
Hey, hang on a sec. I'm going to go scratch Tucker Carlson over here.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh, man.
it's a cute theory. I don't think we need to worry about losing any ghosts to old age anytime soon.
No, but here's my thought on this
Yeah.
though. I have a counter theory to his theory.
Okay.
This is from NASA, okay?
NASA. Okay.
NASA. The second law states that if the physical process is irreversible, the entropy of the system and the environment must increase. Okay, it's kind of the same. It's different wording, but it's the same idea. That's the second.
That's the second law of
thermodynamics, but it's in their words, right?
All right.
And it got me thinking. Okay, if the physical process is irreversible, this can happen. This can dissipate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but we have seen time and time again through ghost investigations that the spirits grab energy from all electronics around the room. So the energy is not entropic. It is continuously growing as the ghosts grab energy from systems around them, from transformers, from anything you want to say, Tesla cars.
That's the idea. Like whenever they go into this environment and the ghost hunters are investigating this, you'll have like, oh man, the battery on my camera suddenly died or something.
Oh bro, I'm cold. I'm cold.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
pulling
It's pulling energy from you.
Right.
Yeah. That's what everybody claims. Sure.
Right. So if we're gonna go on this stupid idea that all this is true, I think that ghost can potentially live forever because you can stop that physical deterioration process and you can get more energy as you go.
That's a fantastic refutation of this theory.
I
actually.
refute you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, also, I've heard that like ghosts gain energy from like running water and shit too.
Oh,
remember?
right.
Like,
Yeah. Anything, any power of any kind, right?
So, yeah.
But I mean, this is interesting, and I also just want to say at the end, like this
Yeah.
guy is a very interesting guy. I looked into him.
Okay.
He's kind of one of those guys that's done a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
real like.
I saw that he was a stunt man.
Yeah, like this guy. It's like, what hasn't this guy done? He's got 4 black belts. Okay. And he's made documentaries. He's a consultant for vitamin and food supplement companies.
How does this guy not have a show on Travel Channel?
He needs a show. He's a CEO for an international news and media organization.
Okay. Travel Channel. Travel Channel. I know that you listen to this podcast. Heads at the Travel Channel.
Always looking for ideas from us constantly. Ugh.
Get this guy. Get Brian Sterling Vitt. Give him his own show. I will watch it. Dude, let's get him on this podcast.
Do we want to give him a platform?
Probably
not. Do we
not.
want
No,
to
it's
encourage this?
Well, do I think it would be the best, most scientific ghost investigation I've ever seen? No. Do I want to watch him fumble around in the dark? Fuck yeah, dude.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
If only these 100-year ghosts could figure out how to suck energy from a battery. Too bad. They're dying.
That always cracks me up too, man, because I can't tell you how many times I've been on set and just been like, fuck, the battery's dead. Like, it happens a lot. I'm sorry.
Does it really happen a lot?
It really
Okay.
does.
Yeah.
Because, well, first off, I mean, obviously there's user error. Mm-hmm. But also, and I don't want to speak ill of the Travel Channel or any of these ghost hunting groups or anything like that, but cheap batteries are terrible.
Yeah.
And charge is inconsistent. And I found that across multiple types of batteries from multiple types of cameras. I've had cameras die like that just from buying cheaper batteries. It's just, battery tech is weird, dude.
So, yeah, and isn't there a calibration aspect too? Like, if you get a does that play in?
There used to be. I don't know how much that's still true. It used to be that, you had to be kind of baby the batteries and charge them all the way up and then let them die down to a certain percentage and then charge them all the way up again. I do know that depending on the batteries, some of them, if you leave them on the charger for too long, they can overcharge and that shortens the length of the battery. But like the camera that I use now, I've pitched 2 or 3 of the batteries that I got in the last year, just because, I mean, I use it a lot. I'm on set a lot, and I just burn through them, you know? And for me, anyway, just because I'm the person that I am, if a battery dies on me, I throw it away. It's not worth my dealing with that. For other shooters, I don't know. Maybe they would hang around. Maybe you don't quite have the budget to just run through batteries the way I do. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, money bags. Battery fund, I know.
Hey, we got big money in these Grammy Awards.
That's right.
Anyway, yeah. So
there you go.
I did find that Brian Sterling Vet continues his investigations with his spirit-sensitive dog, whose name's Spooky Doo. Come on, don't you want to watch this guy's TV show?
Okay, give the dog a show.
Oh, the dog?
Give the dog the show.
That's the fucking idea right there.
Ghost dog.
Ghost dog.
Ghost dog hunter. Ghost hunter dog. Hunting ghosts with my dog. I don't know, we'll workshop it. Okay, last story. Matt,
let's go.
Take it away.
Okay. So, last story, our last major story here, we need to talk about the Manhattan Alien Abduction and the lawsuits surrounding it. So for those not familiar, Netflix released a new doc-series titled Manhattan Alien Abduction earlier this month, maybe actually at the end of October. And it recounted the story of Linda Napolitano's abduction from her New York City apartment, where she claimed she had been attacked by aliens before being levitated out of her window and into a spaceship. All of this allegedly happened multiple times, and her levitation out of her window was allegedly viewed by 23 witnesses during a November 1989 blackout. If you haven't seen the series, I'd go check it out. It's decent. It's not the best UFO series I've seen. It's not the best doc series I've ever seen. It's very sort of passive viewing, but it's worth it because it's a very fascinating case, I think, and very fascinating people surrounding it.
It is, and if you don't want spoilers, go watch it and come back to this because we'll probably
for sure. Yeah, we're going to talk about everything here. Yeah. So after all of this, Napolitano claimed that the aliens came for her son as well, and they were doing some kind of experiments on them, evidenced by an X-ray that she had that showed some kind of like squiggly object in her nose. The whole thing was investigated by Bud Hopkins, renowned ufologist. During the investigation, tensions with Hopkins' girlfriend, Carol Rainey, hit a breaking point when Rainey realized that Hopkins was actually kind of influencing his subjects when they were under hypnosis. Because Hopkins was such a big proponent of doing these like regression hypnosis sessions and taking the victims back to when you were abducted by the aliens and then going through the whole process.
Yeah.
And now Napolitano is suing Netflix, claiming that the docuseries presents her in a negative light and makes her look like a deliberate liar, which it kind of does. It's a little bit on the fence, I think.
It does, but I feel like it didn't feel like it was pushing any kind of an agenda. It was just
no, it's very matter of fact, actually.
It was just recounting what she said and did.
Right.
And so to me, I don't understand why she's so upset, because it does seem kind of like, well, this is just what happened. I mean, you said these things. These are the things that you claimed.
Exactly. Yeah.
And as far as Bud Hopkins goes...
Oh, well, yeah, I'm going to talk about
okay.
Mm-hmm. First off, there's a whole bunch of holes in Napolitano's story. I did some digging in the archives of the New York Times, because the first thing, supposedly this happened in a blackout in November, right? Boom. Easy to find that, I thought. But I couldn't find any reported blackouts on the date of her alleged abduction, November 30th. There was a blackout in December, and there was a launch from Cape Canaveral in November, which was a night launch, which was a strange launch to have happened, but neither of these things exactly line up.
Okay, so the night launch didn't happen the night of her abduction.
The launch was actually a week earlier on November 22nd.
Okay.
So none of them line up specifically with the dates of her claimed abduction. So already there's some holes in her story.
Could it be that the launch was seen from Manhattan in any way? Like, could you have seen it?
Actually, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it would have been seen. It was strange. They don't usually do launches at night. Mm-hmm. And having that launched at night, it's very likely that it would have been visible all the way up the East Coast.
So could it have been on a particularly dark night and they saw this white thing flying up and they just misconstrued the date and saw it?
Yeah. My suspicion is that all of this got reported after the fact.
Yeah.
And so when Bud Hopkins sat down and started to talk to people about it, people remembered the blackout in December. People remembered the rocket launch in November. And all of those were close enough in time to when Linda Napolitano claimed to have been abducted. And so they all kind of got mushy in the timeline. And Bud Hopkins, he wasn't the most careful and cautious of reporter to begin with. You know, his methods are, I'd say, questionable at best. As detailed by Carol Rainey, he used memory regression hypnosis to help his subjects recount supposedly lost traumatic memories during their abductions, quote unquote. But this whole notion of repressed memories is complete bullshit. Although it was popularized in the 70s and 80s, probably one of the reasons why Hopkins was using it, psychologists and neurologists now call it bullshit. Take Harvard psychology professor Richard McNally, who said, "Recovered memory therapy is the worst catastrophe to befall the mental health field since the lobotomy era." Or the University of California Irvine psychologist Elizabeth Loftus, author of 24 books and 600 papers on memory, who said, "You can plant entire events in the minds of otherwise ordinary, healthy people. The emotion is no guarantee that you are dealing with an authentic memory." As I said during our fuck eulogy to Bennett Braun, who used hypnosis to plant memories of satanic cults and rapes in Michelle Smith's mind, that's Michelle Remembers, the famous book. Yeah. In short, memories are malleable. Just because a memory is traumatic does not mean that it is accurate. Bud Hopkins was nothing more than another Bennett Braun, except instead of Satanists torturing his patients, he implanted memories of aliens abducting these people.
Question.
Yes.
Do you think that he was doing this? Do you think he knew what he was doing, or do you think he was just an empathetic guy who wanted to help people and he kind of created a big problem?
I do think that Bud Hopkins was... I think that Bud Hopkins believed he was doing the right thing.
I think so too.
I think that he thought he had uncovered something that nobody else was talking about. And it was just, you know, he followed it as far as he could. And then the problem is when you have two people believing it. I mean, Bennett Braun was the same way. I don't think that Bennett Braun was all that deceptive.
Oh, you don't think he was deceptive?
No, I think that he believed his bullshit too. You know, he just had an agenda.
Okay.
And Hopkins had an agenda of sorts, but it's blurry, right?
Well, his agenda kind of mirrored, I think, that you sit down to bet and you're in, you know, and he's in so deep. Yeah. He's got to keep he's got to keep putting the money down.
We talk about this a lot, the sunk cost. Yeah. That, you know, he was there and he had several other people who reported these stories. And then, so those are the questions he starts asking, you know, well, are you on a table? Are you, you know, can you see anyone else there with you? Do they look human? Do they? And then you kind of lead the regressive memory. And unfortunately, you have these people who are in a state where they're very sympathetic to having these things implanted on them.
Yeah, and I think that when it comes to Bud Hopkins, I think that he cares for these people so deeply. And you could really see it in the documentary.
Yeah, he definitely did.
He really cared for them so much that he lost objectivity.
Yes.
And unintentionally influenced people as he tried to help them. And this is a very dangerous combination when you put somebody like Napolitano into the mix, who I think is a grifter.
I think she is too.
And so you've got Bud on one hand and her on the other, and you have his wife in the middle watching everything fall apart. And it must have been very difficult for her to watch this.
Yeah, and she cared for Bud too. And she came in, she was a documentarian who wanted to report on this. And the more she reported on it, the more she was like, oh my God, this is all bullshit.
Yeah.
But my husband is in so deep. I want to help him save face. And ultimately, it seems like that might have been one of the reasons, if not the primary reason, that their marriage ended. It's funny because a lot of the suggestions that Bud Hopkins was unconsciously implanting in these people were stolen, quote unquote. They were lifted from Whitley Strieber's book Communion about his own encounter with aliens. They start to fit this same pattern. That's why you see this spike in alien abduction cases, because they're all kind of repeating the same thing over and over again.
And how many of these people read that book too, and before they came in and sat down with him?
And I'm not even sure it matters that they read it.
Oh, probably not.
It matters that he read it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's true.
And this would all be corroborating evidence of an actual abduction, possibly, if Strieber wasn't a fiction writer first, who published a bunch of less than successful speculative books on things like werewolves, cults, and nuclear apocalypse for a decade before writing a book on, quote, his own abduction.
He learned how to pivot and make some money, man.
Yeah, we'll talk about
Good
Whitley
for
Strieber
him.
at some point, because Strieber is a fascinating little figure in the UFO and alien abduction movement. Anyway, and then, of course, Hopkins got a very healthy boost from the 90s, the X-Files, which helped to bring alien abductions into the mainstream. And then we got this feedback loop where what Hopkins was reporting on became the subject of the X-Files. And then that created a whole new generation of people that were like, oh my God, look at this. And then they started to feed into what Hopkins was talking about and what Hopkins was reporting on. And then it becomes a big old reporting cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also worth pointing out that Hopkins wasn't a scientist or psychologist either. He was an artist with a bachelor's degree from Oberlin, which is fine if you're painting pictures of UFOs, but not if you're claiming to conduct scientific psychological experiments on poor people with genuine concerns. If Hopkins had been trained, he'd probably quickly have identified that the vast majority of his clients were the victims of sleep paralysis, which is a totally normal and common occurrence, and has all the tenets of alien abduction. Feelings of paralysis, or like being locked into your body, unable to move, hypnagogic hallucinations because your brain's panicking and trying to find familiar objects, so you start seeing things like faces. You know, that's what we jump on, right?
We used to jump on it being demons.
Yep, we used to call it demons, exactly. It's succubi, incubi.
Succubi, right. Now it's aliens,
Now
because
it's
that's
aliens.
in the psyche right now. Yeah.
Yep. And sometimes there's even this like quasi-dreaming states, and sleep paralysis tends to happen when you're half awake. You know, you're trying to wake yourself up from this dreaming state.
And it tends to happen when you're under a lot of stress.
Right.
And so these people are coming in already upset, you know, not only are
Exactly.
they experiencing sleep paralysis, but there's probably stuff going on in their lives that's difficult.
Totally. Yeah. So, I mean, I can't personally say whether Linda Napolitano experienced sleep paralysis and was influenced by Hopkins, or if she was playing Bud the whole time. But it kind of seems like she was from the documentary. And
I mean, we can't say, right?
Yeah, we can't
obviously,
say.
but it seems like that. Yeah.
But it seems like that, and it seems like she unfortunately probably played her son a little bit too. And now she's suing Netflix for the way that she was depicted in the doc, which also does not seem like the behavior of somebody who is genuine.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could kind of go either way. I don't know. Like, if I was telling the truth and they made me look crazy, I'd be upset.
I think I would be looking for a more public platform to express my story and not just take them to court personally. But I don't know. That's me and not them. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. She's just...
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. But yeah, so that's your, you know, brief little foray into what's going on there. We'll keep an eye on the lawsuit. I don't know how public this is going to be. They may very well just settle. But if you haven't seen the doc, go check it out. Form your own opinions. It's a really fascinating little piece of UFO history, UFO lore, and it's got some of our, I wouldn't say they're our favorite people, but they're people tangentially connected to our favorite people, because of course Bud Hopkins, after splitting with Carol Rainey, goes on to develop a relationship with Leslie Keane,
Right.
who then gets folded into all of the things that we talked about in our first news item here.
Right, it all comes back, guys.
Grush and Elizondo and all of this new disclosure movement.
Talk
that's
about
happening.
circular reporting.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it fascinating?
It all comes
right?
back.
Yeah, it all comes back. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have to say, just to put an end to this, I feel really bad for Carol Rainey.
I do too.
I think she's also depicted as kind of just like a bitch and just
she's depicted as being this sort of mean, antagonistic person.
Yeah.
And I don't think she was. I think that she was just trying to follow
Yeah.
journalistic integrity.
Yeah.
And has been locked in this feud with Linda Napolitano for, 30 years?
Yeah. She was just trying to get to the truth.
Yeah.
And the truth is ugly sometimes. And what a brave person to brave the ugliness of the truth of
Yes.
her own husband, like her own husband.
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, props to Carol Rainey for sure. Good luck.
Yes.
Good luck, Netflix. Man.
Docs. There's a lot of lawsuits.
First baby
swirling around these
reindeer.
docs. I know. Baby reindeer paved the way. And now it's funny because all the docs you see coming out are like they're very deliberately like not a true story or based on a true story. Yeah, like very,
Please
very
don't sue us.
deliberately. Like, yeah. It's really funny.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
But there you go. That's our Fortean Roundup for November.
There's a lot of shit to round up, man.
I know, that was a lot. Well, yeah, I mean, we're lots of
Yeehaw.
aliens. Lots of aliens here.
Lots of aliens. So, anyway, that's it. Well, I
you
hope
go.
everybody enjoyed and learned something. And
Yeah, came away a little bit more educated in the world of the aliens and all that good stuff and ghosts, you know? So if you see, if you see a ghost, you know, just give them a little pat on the back because you never know where they're at in their stage of 100-year
decomposition.
life. Yeah.
I would say give them a battery.
Give them
That's
a
the
battery.
best gift you can give a ghost this holiday season.
Yeah.
Give them a battery that's fully charged and calibrated.
Genius.
Give
Yeah.
them just a few more years of
Just
life.
give them a
after
battery.
life.
Let them live on a little bit longer. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And if you see an alien, tube of meat.
Tube of meat.
Yep.
That's right.
Great. Awesome. So thank you all so much for listening. Really
Yeah,
love
thanks,
doing this.
everybody.
Love that you're along with us for this crazy ride. We'll keep going. We'll keep seeing what's around the next bend. So
Yeah.
yeah. If you feel like being a little bit generous this holiday season, you can always head over to slayingmonsterspodcast.com and click on the support us button at the top of the page. That will take you to our site that allows you to become a member, become one of our great supporters.
Even a little bit helps a lot.
Even a little bit, you help keep us going. It's wonderful. We really, really appreciate all of our supporters out there. And
Yes, we do.
we got some cool new stuff that I'm planning for 2025 for our supporters specifically. So keep your eyes on this space and keep your eyes on the skies. Yeah. Truth is out there. The truth is out there. Cool.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Be safe out there. Thanks for listening to Slaying Monsters, the Paranormal History Podcast. If you like the podcast, there's a couple ways to show your support. You can tell your friends, you can leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform, or you can head over to slayingmonsterspodcast.com and click on the Support Us button to leave a donation. For questions, suggestions, and other feedback, reach out to us, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com, and stay up to date by following us on Instagram @slayingmonsterspodcast. Your support helps us grow, and we are truly grateful to have our listeners and community.